Hi everyone, welcome to another ecosystem session with the RedGrid team. We've got in order of my window, Simon, Alex, and Adam. Hi guys.
Hey
David.
Hey
David.
Great to see you again. Look forward to getting a bit of an update.
Yeah, cool. It's good to be here. It's good to tell you about what's been going on at our end. Different planet. It feels like sometimes, but just a different country at the moment.
Could we just check actually? When we check, could you check, because I'm not sure which planet you're on with your background, or Alex, which planet you're on. So
yeah, so this is.
I think Adam's on Mars.
RedGrid.
Looks
yeah.
Mars-ish.
Alex is on Mars. I think I might be near Nevada. I'm not entirely sure, but that is a different planet. Although in reality, this is just outside Melbourne, I think. So yeah. Alex, where are you?
Well, I went for a little stroll and got lost on Elon's rocket.
And Alex and Simon's in Sale. So
I'm in rural Victoria, so kind of a different planet.
We can tell with the wardrobe or cupboard in the back.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Not the flashes background in my. Anyway,
you got it, man. But yeah, so things at our end, like it's been. So everything in Australia is obviously sort of semi shuts down over Christmas and in early part of January because it's the summer here. Although we haven't had much of a summer in Melbourne, but it's that's kind of what happened. So, but we had a pretty strong run towards the end of December, putting together all our sprint planning and putting together the new team that we have that's developing the technology. So Sim will probably talk a bit about that in a minute. And that was pretty intense because we hired a really fantastic project manager from the UK. And she's been really sort of shaping things up and doing a really wonderful job of putting that all together, working with some new developers, and really putting ourselves into a really good spot to get the next version of the MVP. This is like more of a minimum viable product rather than a minimum viable product. So it's nice to have something out that actually, that will be working really soon. And then as we got back into January, we pushed pretty hard to get a whole bunch of business model testing done that Alex has been doing, and he can talk about that in a minute. And we just submitted last night like a pretty big grant for government funding for doing some virtual microgrids. So there's some really cool stuff happening. It's a lot of kind of product development happening and a lot of kind of trying to work on how we scale up the business model and put that forward. And so, yeah, it's exciting. There's lots going on. Sim and Alex, I don't know if you want to jump in with anything that I missed on that one.
Yeah, I think you nailed it all, Adam. But it's really been really heavy in product development this recent phase. So just lots of sprint planning and that sort of stuff. And startup life never disappoints. There's always something new to focus on, and it's sort of a new phase for us, and it's actually a bit of a sort of a convergence phase as well, like the stuff that Mike was talking about last time with some of the university project and this property development project starting to bring the two streams together into something pretty fascinating. So it's an interesting time for our business for sure.
Interesting. Is there something can you share a little bit more about how that's coming together?
Yeah, I can a little. I guess so. We're basically we're kind of tackling the distributed energy problem from the sort of two angles. So we've got, in order to orchestrate and coordinate energy at scale, obviously you need to win the hearts and minds of the actual individuals in the homes who have these new solar panels that are going up everywhere and batteries that are the sort of assets to the grid. And so our property development side is really focused on providing value from that side and engaging the user and testing some just providing direct value for homeowners and people in rented accommodation and in that sort of in that sort of side of the fence. whilst the Monash side was very much focused on energy transactions and infrastructure, more an accounting layer coordination for the grid. So we're starting to, both of them are necessary for a valuable product and to do something with distributed energy. So we're sort of got these two projects. We're starting to build bits of each into the single one. So
cool. You're getting a yeah, you got a fan here. Although I think he actually just wants to learn more about World War II. That's the topic at the moment.
It's the topic.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a ton of sense. You want to turn it on? Yeah, go for it. You're going to do drawing. Finds out some facts. Okay, cool. So you
find out some facts.
Find out some
and then
facts.
do some drawing.
Exactly.
I'll have a couple. Yeah. So it's like a really interesting time, but we're definitely focusing on, especially with all the year we've had with COVID and all this sort of the things going down. There's a real building sense of community and an actual a real growth in this movement of mini grids and microgrids, especially for sort of rural areas and more areas on the periphery of the main grid. So we're seeing a heap of traction in that area as well, and people really interested in sort of taking control of their own power to the people, I suppose. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think the big challenge is, when we're trying to do something that's kind of a bit different, obviously with Holochain and pushing a really decentralized approach and trying to, come up with new ways of thinking about how old systems can be done better. That's the challenge, really. I think is that we've got this. There's lots of microgrid action. There's lots of mini grids sort of happening, but sometimes it feels a bit more of the same. Like it's still. It's certainly not open source. It's definitely kind of, capturing. And we're trying to figure out, like, how do we build something on top of that enables people to create value that they actually think is useful for them. And we had a really interesting meeting last week with one of our advisory board members who's taken a tech company through numbers of rounds of venture financing and things. And he said something really interesting to us, which made a lot of sense, which was, everyone talks about optimizing their energy, making sure you're just being as efficient as possible. And that's true, that's important. You're saving kilowatt hours, you're saving carbon, you're saving money. But at the same time, it's not just about the kilowatt hours, it's about something else. It's about a community you're being part of. It's about having something where you can start to do something with someone else, like as in like engage with someone that you maybe don't know through energy in a different way. And then what does that mean for actually having value for those individuals? It's not just, hey, I saved 20 cents today. It's more like, hey, I saved 20 cents, saved a bit of carbon. Oh, this new person here. Our machines are starting to interact with each other and do something on behalf of both of us. And that's interesting. And I think that's where we're not seeing that so far in the mini grid and microgrid world, because it's still just, the transaction of energy in, energy out. I think we think as a platform, it's bigger than that. And one of the things we've just been putting in for some of these grants is, what does it look like to have a system that is smart in the house, smart in your home, gives what you need, but then opens it up to having a whole bunch of interactions with other people who are not on the same retailer, who don't have the same devices as you, who have a different demographic to you. Maybe they have the same demographic. It doesn't really matter. But the whole point is, what does a community built around energy and low emissions, low carbon energy production and consumption and sharing really look like? And it doesn't really look like a super closed off system. It comes back to what we talked about in like 2019 on the ecology of energy. There's this reciprocal altruism that needs to come through, which will actually benefit the society at large, as well as the individual. And I think that's why when we came back, we always talk about this, David, is like, that's why Holochain is so important to us, because that's sort of built into the core of it. And that's why Art and Eric and everyone has been so supportive. It's like it's actually a fundamental component of what we're going to build, rather than a kind of nice tack on at the end. So I think when Sim was talking about this, like we've done this transactions and settlements at Monash, that's really cool. It's really important because it's the engine that drives us, what we talked about in Mike last time. But what's then the kind of key thing for us is this thing that sits on top that people get and understand. And like that's one of the biggest challenges when you're doing deep tech is like no one gets it. Like we don't get it sometimes. So it's like, how do we then translate it and make it real? And so that's kind of what Alex has been doing, and doing a great job of making it real for people.
Yeah, cool. That's probably a good segue then. So we've got, what's really cool is we can probably give you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of what we've been up to. So we've been, as mentioned, like developing out our MVP and getting tech into people's hands. And some of our early investors are about to get that first access to the tech, which is going to be really cool. But what we've been also doing in parallel is kind of testing out some new models. So something we realized was that this tech we've been using to really make homes intelligent and their own agents and agents within the home can also be applied to people with solar to give them a bit of an alternative to batteries. So we've kind of been testing this new proposition at the moment, which is just like a really cool way, I think, to get a taste of what we've been up to and a bit of a look at how the app's going. So I'll share my screen for a sec so you guys can see it. So this is a little thing, you guys are getting a kind of a look before most other people are. And so what this is this is a thing we're calling Solar Booster. So what it is we're basically making people's households intelligent so that they can consume the energy when their household is producing the most solar. It's actually like a really simple thing, but what's cool is all the automation and intelligence that sits behind it so that people can get a way better return without having to go all the way in on investing in a battery. And this is just a gentle adaptation of the tech that we've been building so far, which is really cool. And we've just basically been sending out some testing, some A/B testing and some ads to see if people are interested in different pricing packages. And we've been kind of like overwhelmed to see that this is something that the market really wants, which is basically a real world application of this intelligent agent-centric technology within the home. And so we've kind of been positioning it as this is a way to get an extra $150 or so a year out of your solar with just a couple small smart plugs, which you can see here. So this is literally what it looks like. This is our current MVP app next to the smart plugs that we've integrated with. And these are right now being rolled out and used by all of our users within the property development Mervac that we're working with. And what's really cool is that it's not just the MVP that's getting interest, and it's not just the solar booster proposition that's getting a bit of interest from the market, but it's resonating with both business to business and end users as well. And so what I've actually just done in the background while we've been on this call is if you head to our website and you're keen to get in on this before we go completely public with it, I've just added a little message field to say hello at the bottom of our newsletter field. Right in there, Solar Booster. And if you're keen to kind of jump on board before we go to the rest of the community, we'd love to have anyone that wants to join. And even if you don't have solar, it would just be really cool to get you involved in the MVP.
Love it. That's awesome, Alex.
A little taste for anyone who's watching. Get a little RedGrid bonus.
I love the real-time update as well. That's wicked.
Yeah. I was thinking like, no one asked me a question for a second.
But it's really cool to see it. And Alex and Marco and the team have been doing a lot of testing with the business models and you know, it's really cool to see people come back and say, hey, yeah, I want to see this because I want to see a low cost way for me to understand my energy better and do it at a plug level. There's not too many organizations doing it at that level. And that's kind of interesting because at the meter level, it's like, yeah, cool. Okay, so your energy was super high yesterday. Oh, cool. Okay, so what was it? And you have to go through, okay, hey, did you put the dishwasher on? Did you, there's all this kind of discussion. It's just, no one really cares, but it's really nice if you get a kind of really nice nuanced sort of understanding of what's going on in your house and make some good decisions and let the AI that Sim and the team are working on in the background makes some good decisions for you as well. And of course, that then filters down into the decision making and the rules that sit on the transactions element that sits at the bottom. And that's kind of, I think that's why Solar Boost is kind of a cool way of thinking about it, because it's like directly from the sun all the way down to optimization, all the way down to the transaction layer. So yeah, it's cool. Nice one, Alex. I'm glad you got to show that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's quality.
That's fantastic, and really interesting the way you were just describing the difference between the plug level and the meter level as well. Plug, as you're saying, it makes them so much more real and actionable.
Yeah, I think so. Real and actually, exactly. And it's sort of, it's a bit of a pain, right? It's a bit of a pain to do, because you got to go and get these, we have to like take all this different data from all these different plugs and try and manipulate it and analyze it and figure out what's going on. But it's actually, if you can, the system is really good. It says, like, hey, your thing doing this is on and it's now costing you this. And if you'd have shifted it, we'd have given you a bit more points. You'd have saved this and that and the other. And that's the thing that we want to get to people, something really specific.
Yeah, and the really cool way to visualize it, I've found, like, if you think of the link between what we're doing at the property developer and what we're doing with Monash, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever seen one of those like graphics where it starts at a cell and it zooms out, and then the cell becomes like a hand, and then the hand becomes a person, the person's in a house, and you zoom all the way out, and then you see the city and the country and the planet, and then you're out in the galaxy, and it all feels connected, but it starts at that granular layer, and then it all connects and emerges from that. And that's kind of the way we think of this virtual mini grid, and the way we visualize it all being connected and how we're connecting it at the moment.
That's what I was going to add. Yeah, exactly that point that Alex just made. Like, one of the really interesting things that we're finding is when you get this real high fidelity data at the extreme edges, like behind the meter, we start to see these patterns. We're starting to see these patterns emerge, and different ways people in these communities are using energy at different times. And you find these sort of like buy-sell matches all over the place, where there's someone who's using it at nighttime and someone who's using it in the day, but they don't use it at nighttime and they do use it in the day. And there's just such an opportunity for efficiency, especially in these sort of microgrid and mini grid applications where they want to keep their community energy. They've got these generation assets and batteries floating around, but everyone's sitting in these silos working on their own and with no arrangement between them. So I really like that data side, like just seeing the different personalities of these homes and the devices within them and how we can mesh them together to get efficiency. So that's a really interesting insight, I think, we're finding.
And from what you guys were describing, as you move from like the cell into the hand, or is you move from the plug into the home, which is happening, but then the home into the community, is that a technical challenge, a social challenge? Like, Adam, you were sort of talking about that challenge before, but where do you see the, is it a relationship challenge and you need like Mervac and other partnerships? Is it actually getting the communities up and,
Sim and Alex, you want to go, or I'll jump in?
I can have a go, I guess. It's really we're sort of trying to tackle it a bit from the social angle. Like, we think there's this opportunity to build a virtual grid through software, really, and that was like one of the early projects the first project we did was a project with a company called SoulShare. We did a prototype of transacting energy value from a grid in Germany to excess solar from a resident in Germany to a home in Bangladesh that got fed energy direct into their meter, like a donation model. And we kind of see like that social angle and getting the software into people's hands so they can have these interactions. We're still discovering what those actual interactions will comprise of, and that's just something that's going to organically emerge, we think. And I think that's a bit of a unique aspect of what we're doing, because most of the sort of traditional industry in energy and the microgrid discussion is all focused on infrastructure, but it's just as much about relationships, I think.
Yeah, just one thing I'd add to that is also like more on the social side, and that's more of the world I play in anyway. But Adam and I were just talking about this earlier today, actually, that what's really cool about what we're building is it can go from both directions. So by creating like really compelling value for the end user that is valuable irrespective of being connected to a microgrid, we can get a bunch of people online. And then when enough people in an area get online, we can form a microgrid. But then in the inverse example, like going through like a Mervac, for example, we can work with a partner who has a large ecosystem and then immediately get a bunch of people online and form a microgrid. So it can kind of like form organically or through a partnership, which makes like a really, really nice pathway for getting adoption and like really building out these communities, which I think is super exciting.
I think that's a really good point as well, because it's sort of saying, look, it's not one or the other to get this thing to happen. Like it's not just a, you know, everyone fight for yourselves and get out there and, you know, do it. It's kind of like, well, if I'm buying a Mervac house and I've got this option to upgrade and just have, you know, 5 years of RedGrid subscription just thrown in, well, why don't I do that? Like that's one way of doing it. But if you want to go and do it yourself, and in fact, people who've bought smart plugs and some of the smart plugs that you can buy in a number of the big retailers here in Australia, not electricity retailers like shops, Kmart and places, they can switch our system on like now. Like it works. And so there's a whole bunch of people out there who don't know yet because we're still refining the product. But once it's ready and it's ready for them they can literally switch on and be part of the system straight away. And that's really cool because they don't need an electrician, they're anything like that. They're starting small. And one of the biggest things we've had with the whole climate change challenge is it's too much of a leap, or whatever I'm doing doesn't count. So what we say is, well, with $15, you can get a plug and you can make something count. And then you can have more and more. And that's what Alex has been testing. And I really like that kind of like, it's a tiny, tiny end of the wedge, or you can go in and, you know, kit your entire house out. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
If you're an energy geek, right? It's kind of fun.
So how do you describe the value proposition from shifting from a house to being part of the grid? I guess from two angles, and I will keep this brief because we'll get another update. This is just a quick check-in, and we'll get another update from you guys in a few weeks or a couple of months. But I'm just now really curious because the value proposition at the individual plug and house level seems really clear. Okay, so what do I get out of being part of a grid? And if I want to actually set up a local grid, like what do I get out of doing that?
So it's a really good question, and it's the distinction comes, and this is why I think Holochain works so well for us. The distinction comes because it grows in strength as a network grows. So the difference. So I, as a person running RedGrid in my house, I get a bunch of analytics. I can optimize my energy. I can use energy when there's least carbon in the grid. So that's really good for me environmentally and economically. But when my next door neighbor has it, and their next door neighbor has it, and we're all on different retailers, we don't know what our bills are. No, we don't know any of that stuff. But the plugs know each other. They can talk to each other. And then suddenly we start to get this opportunity where when the grid needs it, my air conditioning or whatever it might be running on here can switch on and switch off at different points. Now we have a system, obviously you don't want your TV being switched off when you're in the middle of that, like, you know, vital last episode on Netflix. But the whole point is a lot of them are on standby overnight, or they're running through the day. Beer fridges, wine fridges, all those kind of things can be switched on and off pretty easily. What we can do then by moving from the individual household to a group of households in a network, in a virtual mini grid, they can then start to connect with each other. and start to balance out the grid together. And so that provides a number of grid services that can provide demand peak reduction, and it can provide solar soaking. We've got too much solar going into the grid, so we can start to use things better. But the key bit about that is that it starts to enable these different devices to form a community and respond to each other and start to balance independently of other structures and systems that they might have so far. Because it basically, Mike says it really well. He says it's visibility, it's privacy, and it's security. So I don't need to know what's going on in your house. I certainly don't need to see any of your data, but the system can understand what's going on and start to optimize for you.
Yeah, one thing,
and give you rewards for it. Yeah.
I was just about to say, one thing I would just add to that is that like the value exchange or the value proposition between the individual in a household and the grid at large, or like maybe like the distributor or the retailer, is that by participating in this autonomous system and helping the grid, the household and the individual gets rewarded. So we're building it at the moment into our system a rewards mechanism, so that if someone, let's say, switches off, like for people who don't understand what demand response is or solar soaking, if someone switches off their air conditioner automatically through our system for an hour or half an hour, they could get paid for doing that through rewards that we're integrating into the platform. And the same goes for solar. Sometimes, actually quite often in Australia, what we have is there is way too much solar in the grid, and we actually need to consume the energy so we don't overload it. And so individuals could actually be rewarded for consuming their energy at a time when that happens. And so what's really cool is if you go back to that idea of like the cell zooming in and out, if at a little local level, the grid is under strain and it needs a bit of help, or even at this really macro level, this whole area of the city is under strain and it needs help, all these individual communities can kind of like come online and work together to balance things out. And so the organizations responsible for kind of looking after those communities can reward them as a whole for participating in something that actually saves them heaps of money. And so it's really cool when you see the device participating in that, the household participating in that, the street participating in that, the suburb, and then like a whole area of a state. And that's kind of our vision from start to finish. And then you can kind of see how the value flows at every layer of that. So the value proposition kind of trickles downwards. The value exchange trickles downwards as the help and participation trickles upwards. That's really, really cool how it's a fractal in that sense.
Super. Well, there's a ton more stuff we could talk about, but we were committed to keeping it to a bit of a brief update. So let's do that. Thanks so much, guys. That's awesome. I get a really good sense of clarity and progress. And it's, for everyone. Alex, do you want to just share it again? But for everyone who's watching, if you want to jump in and be part of this an initial test phase of here you go. I'll let you plug it, Alex. You did a great job.
So this is our website. It's redgrid.io. And if you want to get on board with either the MVP or you're someone with Solar Booster and you want to be a part of Solar Booster, just say hello here and type in MVP or Solar Booster. We'd love to hear from you.
Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Adam. Brilliant update. And look forward to seeing you in the next couple of months and seeing where the progress is. And I'm imagining take-up's going to be pretty good and you're going to get some pretty phenomenal insights and results from this. So congratulations.
Awesome. Thanks, David. Look forward to catching up soon.